All right. Welcome, boys, or should I say men, movie men. We are back for another edition of the Perfect Movie Quest. This one is going to be an analysis of Justin's nomination of El Dorado, a John Wayne movie from the 60s. Very unique choice, Justin. As per usual, I'm going to give the floor to you to make your case for this movie's perfection, and then let's get into it. Let's have a little sparring match and see what happens.
Okay, so like I don't like to do things the easy way, and of the plethora of movies that I got censured for listing, this was not one of them. El Dorado is back when we had DVDs, my friends. This is the DVD, and before that was VHS. And I don't even know if they probably had a big film rolls when this was actually first seen in home theaters. Robert Mitchum was the Leonardo DiCaprio of his day. I maybe a little more scandalous than him, but he was a bad boy. He got kicked out of a bunch of schools and had to live with his grandparents and moved around and ended up in Long Beach and eventually started acting. And he always had the bad boy demeanor. So John Wayne and him, Robert Mitchum, the J.P. O'Hara, the sheriff, worked together on one other movie called The Longest Day, but that was a star-studded cast where like they never worked in the same shot together. So this was the first movie they take that back. Second movie they worked together. Robert Mitchum got mad at the producers and threw him in San Francisco Bay, and he got fired by John Wayne. There's a long story in there, but he got fired 10 years earlier from working with John Wayne. And so for them to come together, it's kind of like Marvel Cinematic Universe combining for the Avengers. So two power-studded actors that, everybody knows John Wayne, but I just wanted to get a little background to Robert Mitchum. This is also, if you are familiar with Elf, that's James Caan, the dad. So he's the young Mississippi guy in this movie. And so he was the new heartthrob, right, for the next generation. All that to be said, this is the movie where they tried to redo a classic, Rio Bravo, another John Wayne movie, which I think is inferior, but a lot of people, it's in the eye of the beholder. All that to be said, the reason why I feel that this is a perfect movie, I've watched it twice in the last month, and I preview it with my family, and they keep saying, "Hey, can we watch it again?" It is the outgunned, outmaneuvered has-beens. Nothing goes right, and that's what you want in a film. That's why this Western feels perfect to me, is because you have a gunfighter that can't shoot anymore. You have an old has-been Indian fighter that is way past his prime. You've got a drunken sheriff that is way off his game. And he's going up against the new up-and-coming, the best gunfighter there is, hired by, a gangster that's trying to take over this town called El Dorado. The stakes are high, and what I noticed in this movie is it's all about debts and repaying your debts. J.P. O'Hara has a debt to uphold the law, right? Cole Thornton has a debt to the McDonald's for killing his boy. Even though it wasn't his fault, he still feels responsible. He couldn't stay in the town. And Mississippi, he's kind of lost his rudder, and he has a debt, twice over. Cole saved his life. And so he kind of feels like he has to repay a debt. And the unsung hero of this is John Wayne was shot by a girl in this film. Not, I mean, in Hollywood, you don't have your leading man get taken down by a girl. All of these things culminated in a great story, a great setting, high stakes, good pace. Most westerns are like a lot of exposition, and then 5 minutes of action, and then more exposition, and then a build up, and then a really blast, final 5 minutes of the movie, and then not even end credits. It's just the end of the movie. This one was well paced. I go back to it every time I can. If somebody says, "Hey, you want to watch a Western?" I say El Dorado. We can talk about more, but I think that's a good segue into the rest of the conversation.
So I had a question. Would you consider this a spaghetti Western? Or what do you think the difference would be?
This was the start of it. It was kind of in the middle of it. What they would do, as far as I remember, is that they would make their backgrounds 3/4 size so that the actors would stand out. And they were done in Italy, and that's why they were called spaghetti Westerns. This was Hollywood in its prime, so they stole the idea, but I wouldn't say it's a spaghetti Western.
Okay, cool. Yeah, when we accidentally started this conversation over a dinner table, that was one of the questions that came up, and then Bo nixed the conversation, and then it's been on my mind pretty much ever since. So I think that I don't disagree with anything that you've said. I think the challenge for this particular movie in our quest for perfect movies is the category of, was I impressed? Now, there's a lot that goes into it, and you did touch on a lot of it. But I think the part of it falling under impressed is, how does it stand the test of time? And what I mean is, justify. No, you don't even have to justify it. Just defend. I'm just asking you to defend. Defend the. How about one part that kind of stuck out to me that was just kind of like, that was really weird, was when Mississippi jumped in front of the horses, and it was like, not only was I like, why would you do that? And then he explains it afterward, and he's like, oh, I forced the horses to jump over me. And I'm like, I don't think that would have happened. I think he would just be dead. And then, but then two was, like, it was, it was clearly a dummy. Like, I mean, pretty blatantly a dummy. like I feel like even almost for the time frame that it was, I was like, wow, that was hard.
Well, and then you also have to remember that this was like, we're seeing it in 4K or HD or whatever it is. Back in the time, you couldn't see that line, so in the big screen in their day, it was kind of like the Vaseline on the thing for Star Wars. Yes, you have to take their technology with a grain of salt in this.
That's a good point. The rendering of it in today's cinematography on our bigger screens would probably make that stand out. There was another instance that I gave pretty much exactly what you're talking about here. I was like, I'll give it a pass, because it was, what I appreciated about it was that they were really trying, and you could tell that they did. And it was when it was an indoor shootout scene, and a guy fell off the balcony. He got shot and fell off the balcony, and he falls. And
he falls on the camera.
Yeah, he falls on the camera. Exactly. And I was like, oh, that's like putting it into perspective of the time frame, and the technology, and like the hard real life special effects. Like, they went out of their way to try something, exciting to make this feel more realistic in the moment. And so I appreciated it, even though it felt out of place, but not for a lack of it didn't feel out of place for the movie itself. It just felt out of place for the technology of its time, and based off of what they were actually filming. Does that make sense? Like it felt like a Western for the most part. And there were a couple of times in it where I was like, they were trying to implement like modern technical practices that didn't quite fit with the film, but they were trying to adapt it to make it more exciting and entertaining at its current time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and this is 3 years before we landed on the moon. You know, technology was limited. They did try. And also, this is one of the first, the few Western movies where most of the gunfights and the things happen at night. And technically speaking, you have to light it a lot better. Most of the Westerns are just broad daylight. You don't have to worry about cameras or lighting, you know. So the framing of this movie, the pacing of the movie, the director, the screenwriter, the first pass was Lee Brackett. Do you know who that is? She did the first rendition of Empire Strikes Back. So she worked on the script with the director Hawks. So I didn't even know that. But I feel like we have to take the technology out of the equation, because in 60s it was high budget, you know, whatever, thousands of dollars. They used the best equipment, the best actors, the best director, the best sets, the best carpenters of the time. Obviously, it's not going to hold up to $100 to $200 million budgets of all these films that we see today. What I like, the test of time, is this movie is a classic to me because the tropes, the emotion is there for me. Being, you know, how would you feel if you were the cause of somebody else's death in an accident? There was a lot of quips in this movie, but when he brings his son, you know, he's like, his line as he's leaving is, "It doesn't help much," you know, like sometimes tragedy just happens. And I could watch it again and again and again. That's why it's always been one of my top 5, top 10 movies of all time.
Justin, that leads me to my question. When was the first time you saw the movie?
10 or 12.
Okay. I got the strong feeling as I was watching it that this movie would be a lot more special if I grew up watching it. It was one of those where I was like, I could see how this could be like a nostalgic, feel-good movie from like, oh man, I used to watch this movie with my dad growing up, and we used to like talk cowboys, you know, like I get the nostalgia component. Since this was my first time viewing it, again, I'm grateful that you chose this because I probably never would have watched the movie on my own. And so it was like,
that's one of the reasons why I did it.
Yeah, and I really liked it. I've never seen a John Wayne movie, and I claim to be a moviesman, and he's one of the most famous actors of all time. So like this had to happen at some point, and what better way than to analyze it in the framework of perfection. So again, I appreciate you choosing the movie, but I've got some qualms too. So first off, I wanted to touch on the technology and the 4K versus 1966 theater screens. Because I think that's a very valid point. I don't want to dismiss it. I just want to give a shout out to a couple movies that illustrate that one way or the other. The other, like in terms of it being a bad thing, is Hook, the movie Hook. Me and my brothers grew up watching Hook. It's an awesome movie to this day. I still really like it. But when you watch it in 4K, like I remember buying Blu-ray, Hook on Blu-ray, and that scene where Hook is sleeping and Jack's pocket watch comes out and his mustache starts to twitch. On my Blu-ray, you can see the string being pulled. Yeah. And I was like, no. I was like, oh, the high def ruined the movie magic, because they were counting on it not being seen. Like a little fishing string can't be seen, like with 1990s, standard theater technology. Now, on the flip side, a shout out in terms of like kudos is the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie from 1990, because I just noticed like 3 years ago when I watched the movie that I watched it in HD And that final fight with Shredder, where the 4 turtles are all fighting Shredder on the rooftop, and it's like super intense and super action packed in 4K, like Blu-ray on my huge TV screen, I all of a sudden noticed something I'd never seen before. I watched these movies my entire life on VHS and like 1990s TV screens. When I watch it in 4K on Blu-ray on the giant television screen, I didn't notice, but by the end of the fight, the turtles are bruised. Like a makeup artist actually like sponged the turtles like to be pink and hot red and like bruised where they were getting beat up. Things that you wouldn't see with 1990s camera technology. They cared so much about the movie that they're like, I don't know. They're like, hey, since we're here on set, I want you to see that the turtles are injured. You know, I don't know why they did it, but now we can see it, whereas before we couldn't. So I just think that that's really cool that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles took the care to bruise the turtles in that final fight. All right. What I liked about this movie, I'm about to lose my voice, so I'll make this quick. What I liked about this movie is that it was everything that Justin said at the beginning, where it was well paced. I was never bored watching it. It was a compelling story for all intents and purposes and compelling characters. And again, it's John Wayne and it's a Western movie, and so I enjoyed watching it. What took me out of my enjoyment was yeah, I'm gonna lose my voice. So my problem, like I enjoyed everything that you mentioned, but my problems with it start to come into play when I like I said, the acting, or I'm sorry, the story was really good and it was compelling and I was attached to the characters and I was like never bored. But what took me out of it a few times is just the 1960s, I feel like was kind of the decade where I don't know, the Singing in the Rain and Wizard of Oz from like the 50s, like leading into the 60s. It's stage actors converting into film actors. And it's so obvious because they like shout, they've got a lot of range with their voice. They're like exaggerated with their movements. And it kind of takes me out because I'm just like, oh, 1966, they hadn't quite figured out movie stars yet. They haven't quite figured out movie acting yet, like the difference there. Because just a few years later, literally 6 years later, you've got The Godfather. And that is like a masterpiece of a film that like everybody agrees is like an incredible movie. Every component, especially the realism, the acting, the interaction between the characters, like the fact that they used a literal dead horse, not a prop, in the bed scene. I don't know if you guys have seen Godfather, but like it was like a serious movie with serious actors and serious props and serious like behind the scenes drama. And then I'm looking at this just 6 years earlier. I mean, think about what's 6 years earlier for us, 2019. I mean, show me a movie in 2019 versus 2025. I couldn't tell you the technological differences. They would look and feel the same essentially. So it's not that long of a period of time. I'm thinking if we've got a masterpiece in The Godfather and just 6 years earlier, I've got what feels like a Western that's trying to be serious, but has the tone of, Adam West's Batman mixed with the Brady Bunch as kind of in a Western. It just, I'm like, I don't think it stands the test of time in terms of just being an immortalized, like, depiction of good acting and good movie making. Even the way that the cowboys would like walk around, it looked like thespians from high school on a play stage pretending to be in a saloon. Like they didn't, I mean, compare that to 3:10 to Yuma with Christian Bale, and you've got Kurt, I'm sorry, what's his name, the Gladiator,
Christian Bale, and Russell Crowe.
Thank you. And Russell Crowe in 3:10 to Yuma. And it's like what's frustrating is that it's, a Western is in the same time period, late 1890s, early 1900s, maybe, like in saloons and all that stuff. But you look at, El Dorado and just the way that they acted like cowboys, and contrast that with 1991's Tombstone, or was it 92? Whenever Tombstone came out,
yeah,
Tombstone. And compare it to 3:10 to Yuma from 2006. Like, I just feel like as actors get better, they actually transform more into the historical piece, which is weird because 1966 is closer to the Old West than 1993 is. And yet in Tombstone, they're acting more Old Western-y, in my opinion, than the 1960s actors who are closer to the 1800s. So they should know better. But I feel like, I don't know. Do you see what I'm saying? Like it if we are truly to understand the test of time, like I look at Rocky in 1976 and compare all of that acting of all of those actors in that movie, compared that to like acting of today, in my opinion, like it still looks old and sounds old because of cameras and audio technology, but their acting, in my opinion, is still Oscar worthy. I can't say the same about El Dorado. So am I off base in understanding what it means to be timeless? Like I really tried to put myself in a 1966 mindset so that I could appreciate it. But as I compare it to different great movies from different eras that have stood the test of time, I'm seeing a difference there.
Being a 40-year veteran of watching John Wayne movies, I can tell you I've seen a lot of old Westerns, and most of them are way worse than what you're seeing. And so if you don't have those to compare it to, I can see where your point where you're like, oh my gosh, this is definitely not test of time. But I can give you a list of 10 John Wayne movies that you would poke your eyes out and go, why am I watching this? But I can honestly say,
and that's fair. I mean, if you look at, I think a great example too is like Clint Eastwood. Some of his later movies, especially, are just terrible in my opinion. And then you look at his older movies, and there really is like you've got to look at just each one isolated, because compared to each other, he's kind of all over the place in terms of his performance.
Can we get to the storyline?
Yeah,
let's look at the plot and the story. Go ahead.
Before we get to the story, let me touch on what Bo was just saying, because I don't think it's fair to compare compare this movie effectively to action adventure movies from the 90s and 2000s. Like, to put it in context of a Western, like Western was like a time frame of like a genre time frame. And so even though Ten to Yuma was, happened in the Old West, I wouldn't consider it a Western movie, right? Like it was a stylistic choice in that era, in the 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and then faded away in the 70s. Were there even any like Western movies in the 80s? I can't think of any. And then we got back into like, hey, we want to do period pieces in the 90s and 2000s where they're trying to be accurate to history. But what, like, I think your qualm with it feeling like a thespian stage play is a stylistic choice of Western films. And that's kind of how they're supposed to be. They're kind of how they're supposed to be viewed. And so to Justin's point, I would say, yeah, there's a lot, I'm sure. And I've stumbled, like you stumble across them on like, I remember like when we'd come home from school and you'd want to watch afternoon cartoons, and then there'd be a Western on. You're like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I can't even like, like you're just like skip, right? Like there's enough of those that would make you want to gouge your eyeballs out, like Justin was saying. But that's part of the stylistic choice of what we would consider a Western. And so I think that's the context you have to kind of put yourself into, instead of it being a period piece.
Yeah. They're going for theatrics of the Western genre instead of trying to be historically accurate to what Westerns are.
You know what might have ruined it too, and I thought about this watching the movie, is in Dead Poets Society, which I've seen that movie probably close to 10 times. Like I've seen it enough to be very familiar with it. But if you guys remember when Robin Williams is like teaching the kids, he's the teacher, high school teacher or whatever, and he's teaching the kids and he's making them laugh because he's doing a John Wayne impression, quoting Macbeth, Shakespeare's Macbeth. And he's like so exaggerated. And what's funny is that I've seen Dead Poets Society and Robin Williams doing a John Wayne impression before I saw a John Wayne movie. And so I'm watching Dead Poets Society. I'm like, oh, that's John Wayne. Oh, he's like, the kids are laughing because he's exaggerating. I'm watching El Dorado. I'm like, oh, that wasn't an exaggeration. That's like exactly how John Wayne talks and how he acts. And it looks silly. Like it looks like, oh, that I also your gun, mister. Like it's like so. And again, I'm not. That's not a knock saying that it sounded silly. It's
No, that is that like you're saying, that is the artistic choice. And some people like Monster energy drinks, and some people just don't. And one of those people is right, and one of those people is wrong. John Wayne is a certain type. If you like John Wayne, you will love most of John Wayne's movies because that's his line, that's his stick, that's his bread and butter. But if you don't like his line deliveries, I mean, you're going to get a whole lot of that.
No, I checked myself really quick, honestly, because at first I was like, "Oh my gosh, Robin Williams was spot on." Like John Wayne just sounds cartoonish to me now. He just sounds silly. I promise you, not 2 minutes passed as I continued watching John Wayne on my screen, and I was like, no. Like, I can see how a bunch of like country boys in Donny Park, Flagstaff, Arizona, after a long, hard day at work, come home, kick off their cowboy boots, put their dirty socks up on the ottoman, turn on John Wayne, and like drink their beer and eat their beef jerky and nod as they say John Wayne just doing manly things, you know? And so as silly as it was to me, I immediately checked it and I was like, no, this is like a serious character for so many people that I need to see it through that lens because that's how he got famous. And that's why people still talk about him today. And so I did show him the due respect eventually, but that was something I noticed was I was just like, he looks like a cartoon character. He looks like he looks, yeah, kind of.
He had the smolder before The Rock had the smolder.
There you go. That's what it was. Yeah, the squinty eyes, but again, like these are actors from the 1960s, and taking it back to like my comparison to Tombstone or 310 to Yuma, which Alan, point taken. Those are what do you call them?
Period drama.
Period pieces. Thank you. But the point is that the gunslinging, the way that they walk, the way that they dress, the way that they smolder. I feel like the later movies were more true to that time period than John Wayne displayed in El Dorado.
I don't know. He did a rifle twirl with his left hand. That was one of the few times John Wayne ever did that in a movie, and he did it left-handed.
All right, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
Also, did you see he didn't like horses that much? I don't think a lot of people like horses that much, but I can't remember his line. Somebody else didn't like the horse, but they're like, it's basically got to do it because it's a paycheck. But John Wayne, when he's being recruited by Jason, which he actually didn't like John Wayne did not like that actor. So the animosity they had on screen is real, which I thought was cool that you could do that in old days. But he's backing up that horse. I mean, it's all in one shot. That's him, like horsemanship. It is hard to back up a horse that far, covering him. And I appreciate how much practical effects movies had back in the day. The squibs, the dynamite, when they try to make like nitroglycerin, they talk about it, and there is probably something nostalgic I have about John Wayne movies that you guys probably don't have because you didn't grow up with them. But there's a reason to me why John Wayne stands the test of time, has to be at least talked about in movie men's because of his influence on Hollywood and movies. 150 movies in 4 decades. And how did they not shape America and movies? So yeah. Can we please talk about the plot of this movie?
Wait.
No, I've got a couple more things.
Oh, we got them. Okay. More technical 1960s.
Me and Alan we're on the same wavelength there. No, let's talk. Okay. Go, Justin.
Wait, no, for real. I do have one more thing, and it's a grace I gave the movie, but I think it's worth noting, and it's something we've talked about before, and I'm just gonna say it. The gun handling is terrible. based off of modern standards. Like their trigger discipline is like atrocious. They're walking around. I can't even like they're walking around with their pistols by their hips, you know, kind of thing. Like they're shooting from their hip, and it's something that to this day still bothers me about like 80s actions movies. And I'm like, what dawned on me though this time as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, 80s action movies got it from Western movies. Like everybody's trigger discipline was terrible. Like nobody in their right mind would ever shoot from the hip for any reason. I mean, maybe with a shotgun, but it was it kind of cracked me up watching this movie and having that observation. But I 100% would give it a pass because like we've talked about before, I'm pretty sure in this channel that, you know, that true riflemanship expertise didn't actually show itself in Hollywood until what, like The Recruit. I think that's kind of where we've pinpointed where like all of a sudden Hollywood like wised up and like, oh, you know what? People do this as a profession. They actually know what they're talking about and know how to handle weapons. Maybe we should look into that. And so it didn't happen until like the early 2000s. There were some good like shout outs in the 90s, like Tombstone's a good example of that. But even Tombstone has really bad trigger discipline. I don't know if you've noticed that either. It's just something that I've noticed. But it's worth shouting out. It's worth calling out because I felt like 80s action movies that are terrible with their handling of firearms is now pilfering from Western movies that is also terrible with their handling of firearms.
I'm going to defend this one, if you don't mind me, Justin.
Okay.
I think that the Old West, in terms of gun handling, was like right in between the era where people would be doing like duels for honor as gentlemen, which is just absolutely mindless killing, you know, or injuring at the very least. And fast forward to like Vietnam, when all of a sudden, like you had, you know, sergeants and leaders of Marines being like, "Soldier, get your finger off that trigger. Like, I don't want you shooting me in the back." And I think that I think that in my personal opinion, I haven't done any research, but I think in the Vietnam era, that's when like tactical gun handling really became a thing. I don't think it really was before then. I really think that it was kind of in the Wild West, that chivalrous, like in Tombstone, they illustrated it perfect. Like during a play, you got cowboys like shooting the ceiling of the theater. Like it was a wild time. They called it the Wild West for a reason. I don't think there was gun discipline or
That's
trigger.
a really good point. And I would probably put it during the World War eras. I think that's probably when, you know, actual, you know, discipline came into play. Like you think about the Revolutionary War and maybe the Civil War, but that was like warfare. That's how they did it. They'd line up in lines and pull the trigger and shoot each other. It was stupid. But and then you think about the Wild West, just like you're saying. I agree with you that trying to pull themselves out of that, but there aren't like tactics. There's not like discipline that has been, you know, worked on it. And that's part of the reason why you had these gunslingers that were like legendary, because a couple of them figured it out, right? Yeah. All right. Good point.
Okay. All right, Justin, talk to us about the story. Let's go.
Before I go that, I have a question for you. Now that you've seen it once recently, let's just say I'll give you a 3 months grace. If it comes on in 3 months and it's El Dorado, not just any John Wayne, El Dorado, are you watching it again?
I think I would.
Was it riveting enough to watch it again?
Yeah, if I was in a hotel and like I was channel surfing, it's got the remote drop. Now that I know what it is, I think I'd watch it again. Especially here's my caveat: if there's nothing better on, that's my caveat.
Well, I mean, there's hundreds of perfect movies. We don't know all of them, but I imagine, you know, there's more than two.
Go ahead.
Okay, my point is, Westerns are a part of film. And I try to pick the best Western of my lifetime. And I watched all John Wayne movies that I could. When I say all, I'm talking about from The Searchers, 1956 on, where I have not watched like 100 John Wayne movies from the 1930s to 40s. The only one worth watching is probably Stagecoach, which is on my bucket list to watch soon. But most of them are serialized, very similar story. You know, you could watch it and forget about it. So I've watched all of John Wayne movies I can growing up because my dad was a big fan. And this one has compelled me every single time. I mean, I could watch it right now and I could watch it tomorrow and I can watch it the next day because the timelessness of the story, like I said, is debts and repaying your debts. And there's something about society and, you know, what keeps us together is repaying of debts, right? You owe it to your parents to teach your children what you've learned. And that's the type of story El Dorado is to me. You have a rancher, you know, who got his land, but he doesn't just keep it for free. There's people like Bart Jason, you know, in today's society, trying to buy up and bully you out of your land that you own free and clear. And the only reason why you keep it is because you barely got enough arms and ammunition and willpower, you know, living on the ragged edge. And you have somebody like John Wayne, he had cancer. And in this movie, this is one of the first movies where he's acting without one of his lungs. They took a few ribs and his lung out. So he's only have one lung from 1964 on. And he can't use his gun hand, so you're not used to John Wayne when you're watching a bunch of John Wayne movies. He's not gunslinging like he normally does. He's a little bit more cerebral in this movie because he has to be. And his best friend / rival is a drunken sheriff who got with the wrong woman, and he's all messed up. We can relate to that. And when he's being laughed at and he's sober enough and he's just walking, those are real tears in his eyes. You know, that the 4K really picked that one up. I noticed. You may say it's a little, I call it Western campy. And I think that's what you guys are picking up on, where if you've seen 50 movies, it's all part of that 50s, 60s, and early 70s. But this one, he shoots a kid. And it's not his fault. He's been shot at all the time. He's a gunslinger, but now he has guilt. A gunslinger with guilt and a problem. He owes the McDonald's, but he can't stay around. He can't even stay with his girl. Don't you think I can know a girl? And not until he realizes, oh crap, the sheriff that I left there is in shambles. I got to go repay my debt to the McDonald's. I owe them. And the daughter shoots him because she's not taking it. She shoots him in the back. And, you know, you're not going to shoot any more little boys, mister. And, you know, he throws a gun. You didn't miss. I love that scene. But now he's got something for the rest of the movie, a ticking time bomb in him. And the knife fighter that he picks up, his help, can't even shoot a gun. And he's like, were you aiming at that Choya? No, I was aiming where you were. I'm afraid it's useless. And again, that's it wasn't about the draw. Obviously, John Wayne's going to hit wherever he's going to hit, and Mississippi's always going to miss. But getting a sawed-off shotgun, it has a backstory. So he's recruiting this scene, and then you got this old Indian fighter who bugles, going up against the best gunman and for hire and all the money and power in this town at night. And every time he looks over at JP O'Hara, he's like, "You all right?" "No, you ain't." And he's like leaning over, and they're just barely getting by on every scene. And then you get to the final battle where, you know, he can't even use his gun hand. What are you going to do? And it's guns ablaze. And you're thinking to yourself, the Duke, who's always infallible, might die in this movie. And actually, in some instances or some takes of the movie, he was going to die. And then it also didn't take itself too seriously. There was a lot of jokes in it, and also the Robert Meacham grabs the what do you call it, the crutch, in the wrong hand, and they called it out, and they actually added an extra scene because at the end of the movie they both have it on the wrong arm. So they didn't take themselves too seriously, but they were trying to say an homage to the Western genre because it was coming to a close. That's why all the scenes were filmed at night. Yeah, it was old has-beens. It was an end of an era. It was up against the wall and things not going right. It's one of the reasons why I really love Mission Impossible 4, Ghost Protocol, because all the stuff that you were thinking of in the first 3 movies all goes to crap, and they have to figure it out on their own. So that, to me, is why this is so compelling, and I don't care about the acting. It's good enough for me because it's one of the best Westerns I've seen.
I just want to add to what you said, because that I remember when he shoots the kid up on the hill, right? And he goes up to the kid, and I was like really curious. I was like, okay, this is a PG movie, obviously before PG-13 existed. So I knew that like PG means different back then than it means now. But I'm like, how are they going to deal with a very serious situation? Is there going to be blood? Is there going to be gore? Is the kid going to die? Or is he just going to be nicked and then miraculously, you know what I mean? Like, because it's just a PG movie, like how kid friendly is this back in 1966? I was very curious to see how they would handle death and gore and gunshot wounds. And I was so pleased to see like there was actual blood and the kid was like groaning and he wanted to end it. And I was like, okay, this is like, this is a serious movie. Like I've got to take this serious because this scene is serious. And then moving forward, that was like way at the beginning of the movie. Right. And then after that, you know, he puts the kid on and he says whatever he says, where he says the second gunshot and it wasn't me or something like that.
You'll find two bullets in him. One's from me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I'm in. Like this is a movie that takes itself serious. I like that. And all the storytelling components that you just described just reminded me now as I was watching it, thinking to myself, there's so much going on in this story, but there's not a single thing I think I would take out. I didn't think it had fat. I think that every single like pivot of the story as the movie's going on, even though it seems disjointed because there's so many pivots, I just retrace them back and I'm like, no, they're all necessary for the story. Like this plot is really strong. It's a really strong plot. And all of these twists and turns are necessary. I wouldn't delete anything, like including like Joey's storyline and like all the nighttime. I mean, there is one scene that I'm pretty sure modern streaming services have cut.
The Chinese.
The Chinese, yeah.
But isn't that great?
Listen, it made me laugh out loud, and I'll probably go to hell for it. But I was just like, well, that's not something you see in modern movies these days.
They had to cut it for TV a lot.
So I'll bet. I'm like, the most offensive thing we see now are a bunch of freaking rainbow flags and Black Lives Matter and all this other like woke bull crap. Bring us back to like the non-woke, offensive, politically incorrect. I thought that was hilarious. It reminded me of the movie Dragon, a Bruce Lee story that came out in the 90s, where like that version of Bruce Lee was like offended by the way the Chinese were depicted in movies in the 60s. And I was like, oh, well, there you go. John Wayne movie. Case in point. It's just a total stereotype that was, I don't know. Maybe
also all the Mexicans are stereotyped in all those Westerns too.
Yeah, that's true.
And all the cowboys are stereotyped.
What do you think about the story?
John Wayne and his ilk, or you're a bad AMFer and you like to kill everybody, you know?
Did the bad guy that had the scar, was that a contact lens or was he legitimately blind? Do we know?
I think that's all prosthetics because
was it?
I looked at it, him in other films, and I was like, no, that looks like he has 2 normal eyes.
That was good prosthetics. I was impressed by that, like a contact lens or whatever it was. And he was a great actor too. I really liked his character. Alan, what about you? Any notes on the story itself?
Yeah. So I was hesitant as I'm watching it because again, I'm trying to, I didn't just sit down to watch this. I wasn't being forced by my high school buddy to watch a John Wayne movie, right? It was or no, I'm watching this from a critical lens. Is this a perfect movie? And at first, I was critical of the time jumps, and because it was
6 months where he gets shot to the next scene. Yeah,
right, and they didn't say that, and I mean.
They did.
It wasn't obvious. Yeah, right. It wasn't obvious, and then they had to talk about it. But then, as the movie progressed, right, and then he kind of when he goes back to El Dorado and to basically help his drunken cop buddy, right? I was like, that was actually brilliant because they set it up. They took the time, like Bo was saying, they took the time to take it seriously. They took the time to set up a good story instead of just exposition. It's what we talk about all the time with implied intelligence. It took me a minute to catch on, but once I did, I was like, it was beautifully done. So yeah, dude, like the what I love most about this movie is that it's dialogue driven, not exposition driven, but dialogue driven. And they do such a good job. My favorite line of the entire movie, though, was when was it the sheriff or the deputy? I kind of don't remember. Whichever one was getting John Wayne and Mississippi deputized. And he's like, raise your right hand. They raise the right hand. He's like, repeat after me. I don't know the words, but you're deputies now. And I just thought it was like, it was so well executed. And I thought that kind of just epitomized like the whole, that scene in and of itself epitomized the rest of the entirety of the movie for me. Like it was sincere. Like the actors were all bought into it, and then it didn't take it too seriously, like itself too seriously, in order to get to the point that was serious and move on with the story. Like it was just so well executed, and I felt like that kind of just captured the essence of the entire movie for me. In that moment.
Yeah, like when the lady comes in, everybody's given a bar of soap, and he's like, "Oh, the only room is in the back. I'll close my eyes," you know.
Yeah. Alan, you just reminded me that scene almost broke my heart because I was like, oh, I've seen this before a million times. They did it in Tombstone right before the OK Corral shooting. They gave Wyatt Earp his badge. They're just copying Tombstone. Wait, this movie was made in 1966. Shoot, did Tombstone copy this? Like I was kind of disappointed. I was like, I really like that scene from Tombstone. I didn't know it had been done before. But I really liked it as well. It put a smile on my face. Should we move to the boats, or Justin, do you have more you'd like to say?
Oh, I mean, it is near and dear to my heart, but I think I can say a lot about Duke, John Wayne, Marion Morrison, and it just wasn't a tough enough name. And he was a surfer, and he injured his shoulder, and he was a football player, and if he didn't injure himself surfing, he would have been a football star, probably would have gone to war and died in World War II instead of being the man who shaped Hollywood. The timelessness of this movie, like I said, is in the tropes that it hits, that we all need to rely on each other, and again, this was one of the few John Wayne movies with a twist where John Wayne does not kill the bad guy. It's the woman behind him, right? The one that shot him is also the one that shoots the bad guy and ends. Like the McDonald's themselves defended their land, and we need to remember that. And I think. Maybe you guys don't see it as deeply as I do, but the poem that Mississippi quotes is from Edgar Allan Poe about El Dorado. And maybe that's a little shoehorn in, but they usually do that in like Rio Bravo. They have Dean Martin and Ricky, I can't remember his name, but they just have like this 3-minute, they do 2 songs in the jailhouse waiting for the shootout to happen. They just put in musicals, you know, in these things. To me, John Wayne will always be timeless and classic. I wanted to bring a little bit of that to Movie Men's because we we kind of do focus on the 2000s, 2010s, 2020s, and our critical eye of when we see Tom Cruise doing all these stunts for real. Well, everybody did stunts, and nobody had money for stunt doubles in the 60s and 50s. You know, I mean, you had some, but and the Duke had his too. But
and one more thing I'll say is that I really like that. Before CG became so heavy, you really did like it's so discernible, so clear to me as an adult was watching movies from the past that they really had to rely on good storytelling, not good visuals. Like the fact that his back kept seizing up, that's something that he could just act into the story. You know, the other example I was thinking of was like the sheriff being a drunk, like, and having withdrawals and having that be like a huge problem for him. That's something that he can just act. Like, we can watch him struggling on screen, even though, you know, he's an actor, he's not really feeling those feelings. It's just like all these
actually he really did have a drinking problem. That's
there you go. There, he's a method actor in that case.
Yeah.
But the point remains that, like, I love when a movie has like acting that makes it compelling instead of a random sky beam that everybody's scared of for whatever reason. You know what I mean? Like, it really was cool that like the twists in the story had to do with the characters and injuries and ailments, and like, it was cool. I like that, and that's something that I definitely noticed as well.
Yeah. So I guess we'll call it professional courtesy, and we can start the vote.
I love how you said what did you say? I'll have to watch it on the recording, but you said something like I was like, is Justin manipulating us right now? Because you're like, and you know, obviously you guys don't have as keen of an eye as I do while watching, or what, you said something like that. You're like,
I don't know what I said. I think it was like, because I'm a John Wayne connoisseur.
That's what it was.
I would have the eye for a lot of Westerns and what they get wrong and what I'm bored about. And I'm like, get on to the second half of these movies.
Yeah.
El Dorado is one of those few rare breed Westerns. And I'm telling you, I've watched McClintock and Rio Bravo and a few other John Wayne movies because they want the feel of El Dorado again. And it's just not there. Like, I guess we'll just watch El Dorado again, you know? So even the girlfriend factor and my kids factor, they really loved El Dorado.
Well, I really loved El Dorado as well. Let's move to the votes. Now, Justin, this is the second time. I need you to listen this time. I need you to listen. Listen to me. Open up your ears, Justin, because it hurts me to tell you this a second time, but this is not an excellent movie quest, my friend. This is a perfect movie quest. And with the sanctity of that perfection in mind, I cannot, in good conscience, give, in my opinion, an 8 out of 10, what is reserved only for 10 out of 10s. This is my problem with First Night, is I'm like, I love that movie. It's so fun. And it's like weird because this perfect movie quest has me like finding flaws with movies I really liked. But it's like a sacred title. It's a sacred title. And so the one criteria that I think knocked this down from perfection for me personally was the criteria we have where did it make me feel something here, here, or here? Now, I was interested. It was a fun movie to watch. I was attached to the characters. That's true. And Joey was hot, I guess. But none of those were like, in my opinion, for a movie to be perfect, I have to turn it off and like sink back and be like, whoa, like what a freaking ride. Or like, wow, that made me think thoughts I've never thought of before. Like, whoa, I can't imagine like being in that situation. Like the wow factor, like a perfect movie has to have some sort of like a wow. It can't just be like a, oh, good movie. It has to be like a,
hey, guess what? That's how it is for me.
For you? What about the rest of us, Justin? What about the rest? Listen.
It's my nomination. I feel that. I just wanted to know if anybody else in the group felt that way.
Listen, I'm gonna say that I'm gonna use an example because I'm pretty sure either me or Alan or Chase have used this example in previous and we will never nominate this as a perfect movie, but that's like me saying everybody should like He-Man Masters of the Universe because I grew up liking it. Like, I understand a full-grown adult who didn't grow up watching that as a kid and admiring Dolph Lundgren's loincloth from my childhood moving forward into adulthood, that they would watch that and just be like, "You okay, bro?" Like, what? That's not a movie. That's like that's a skit. That's an abomination. That's not. But like for me, I can find so much value in that movie. The problem is that nostalgia, like it affects all of us that way, where it's like, don't you get it? Can't you see? Can't I articulate? But at the end of the day, unless like nostalgia, that component in determining the criteria of a movie's perfection, I feel like is just way too subjective to rely on in order to get other people to buy in. And for that reason, I vote it is not a perfect movie as much as I loved it. Alan, go.
So I think that El Dorado suffers from one major thing, and I think it's a remastering. We've had movies that are considered classics that have been remastered, and they go through and they touch it up to make it match like today's standards. And what I would have wished would happen for El Dorado is that they would do that for the nighttime scenes, because the nighttime scene was really cool, and I think it was very innovative for a couple of reasons. One, they took a risk that they were actually shooting at night, not just using a blue filter lens to be like, hey, look, it's like you see shadows on the ground still at night. You know what I mean? So they took a risk, and it paid off, but it's having a hard time standing the test of time because nobody's gone back to actually remaster it. And make it and just bring it up to par. I think that's where El Dorado lacks the most, in my opinion. I'm in. I think that this is a perfect movie. And what switched my mind into it was, or what pushed me over the edge into it being a perfect movie, was putting myself in the moment. That's probably not the right way to say it. Putting myself in the context of it being a Western film in its own category. This is probably the pinnacle of Western cinematography. And as Justin pointed out, as we discussed tonight, it's on the cusp of moving from theatrical theater into cinematic theater, and they're trying to marry the genres pretty much. Mm-hmm. And as I said before, like the dialogue is what did that was that like setback moment where I kept thinking about it after the movie. And what it makes me want to do is watch it again so that I can kind of grasp like the one-liner quotes, because there's a lot of them. There's a lot of actually really good like one-liner quotes in this movie. And just
how about this one? Give me an hour. You can wait that long to die.
Yeah, right. Like there's a ton of like really good one-liners that didn't just feel like they were one-liners for the sake of one-liners. They weren't cheap laughs or cheap gags to give a catch line to the movie. Like they were just natural dialogue points that really sucked you into the whole thing. And I was like, man. And so after the movie, I sat back and I was like, I need to watch it again just for the dialogue in and of itself. That's where it got me here and here. Like it did. So I think it is a perfect movie in the context of Westerns and in the context of in cinematic history.
Yes.
I will say that. So Justin asked the question: if it came on in a hotel, like would you stop and watch it? If I'm kind of in the same vein with Bo on this one, but part of it is a bias. I don't like Westerns, right? Like it's like Westerns, and I don't mean historical period pieces from the front like I like a good period piece. I don't like the spaghetti Western. I don't like like the stylistic cinematic experiences isn't my thing. So that it's just a preference. I'm not gonna same thing for like horror films. Like yeah, like really like yeah. We've kind of said this when we're talking with Drew and Callum. Like it's not my thing, but I can't let not my thing get in the way of the perfect movie quest. And so therefore my vote is yes.
Well, how about this, Al? I do like Westerns, and that's why I think it falls short of perfection, because I am a Westerns connoisseur.
Well, hold up. If you've never seen John Wayne movies and this is your first one, how are you a Western fan?
I didn't say I was a spaghetti Western fan. Just Westerns. Just Western. I like cowboy movies. That's it. That's all I'm saying. Like what? No matter what. Like I like this one. It was in the 1960s.
Have you seen
like a Young Guns? He's like Young Guns and Young Guns 2. That's like the top tier
my gosh.
Western cinematography.
Actually, American Outlaws is a great modern Western. You know what I'm talking about? The modern Western.
Don't you dare throw the P word, our precious P word, around American Outlaws. That is like the Fast and Furious of Western movies. And I love it just as much as anybody.
It's the CW Western.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
It's like a bunch of like young 20-year-olds from the early 2000s pretending to be cowboys from the Civil War. It was hilarious.
Yes.
So much fun, so entertaining, but so historically inaccurate. Like
yes.
Everything about that movie is so inaccurate.
My point to you is, have you seen The Shootist?
No.
Have you seen The Cowboys?
No.
I mean,
keep going. I'm just kidding. No,
okay.
There's hundreds of questions I haven't seen, but
I can name a ton of them that are also good in this vein. There are, I would say, 20, 25 great Westerns that you should just watch in your lifetime, because they built on the Hollywood movies theme and studios and production and all that stuff.
Well, there's movies I need to watch. There's romantic comedies I need to watch. Like get in line. I would love to watch any Westerns that you suggest to me. I love Western. I love Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood. Westerns are just fun. If I love what was the movie with Tom Hardy and Shia LaBeouf about
Lawless?
Lawless. Yeah, Lawless is so good. Love that movie. So I'm just because I haven't seen all the Westerns doesn't mean I'm not a fan of Westerns, you silly goose. I love the genre. I love it. All right. So here's the thing. Alan, you got me thinking, because you were like, you're like in the context, and it's kind of like horror movies. And I was like, I gave Drew's movie a perfect, but it did wow me. So I'm going to stand by my vote, because I was wowed with the horror movie, even though it made me feel icky, because feeling icky or feeling good isn't one of the criteria of perfection. And I think we discussed that on that particular discussion, but it still wowed me. This movie impressed me, but it didn't wow me. So we'll see what everybody else has to say. And again, it's like, if everybody votes yes, it's just like with First Night. I would be happy to see that on our perfect movie list. If I get outvoted, like I said, it's an 8 out of 10. That's easy for me to be like, okay, maybe I was off. Maybe it's a 10 out. It's a 10, like a 2-point deficit. So
we said 9s, right? 9 out of 10 is perfect movie.
Yeah, actually.
But if it's 8.9, it's not a perfect movie, right?
Right. Yeah. So we want to get particular. All right. So we will wait for the other boys to send us Marco Polos on their vote and their reasons why, and I will do my best to splice those in, however it makes sense.
I would like to talk about a couple of things first. I know, Bo, you've said in the past, like, hey guys, send us a little quick snippet of what you think. And maybe this isn't that, but maybe I can still do it in a little bit. But just a couple of things about this movie. I'll give maybe the pros and cons, and then Justin can try and tell me why it's not a big deal, or why I'm wrong, or whatever, you know. Firstly, I enjoyed myself watching the movie, and that's a difficult. I think it's more difficult for someone to enjoy them. When was this? 1966? Was it? Was it 66? and I enjoyed myself. How many movies were released in '66 where I sit down and actually enjoy watching? You know, so huge credit for that. Huge credit for the actors. I thought that I thought it was fun. I thought that the I also like a positive was the what's the best way to say this? The women in it I thought were good. The McDonald daughter and then John Wayne's love interest as well. I thought they were good. You know, it wasn't as though they were. Well, I thought the acting was good. It was fun. I mean, again, it's interesting because to say now the acting was good, you mean that they make it so realistic and they make it like you could still tell that they're acting, but I don't know. It still felt very artistic. It felt very as though it added to the movie. So the bad guy was good. I really liked how, as Justin pointed out, the mutual respect and kind of like they made it clear that even though we live in a different age now, like it was clear from the movie that this is something that would happen. You know, they save your life, then you owe them, and there's honor in that society, even amongst the good guys and the bad guys. There's still like a level of honor. Anyway, so all of that I really liked. The only con that I probably wouldn't just throw out to being because of the age of the movie is, and this might have been my own fault, so if you guys didn't feel this way, let me know, or if you agree with me, let me know. But I felt as though the how they portrayed different, how they portrayed the timeline was very choppy. There was parts in the movie where I think they were trying to make you feel as though like a lengthy period of time had passed, but while watching it I was like, why are they like hugging like they've not seen each other in years? Because it felt as though they just went down the road to the next town and then turned around again, you know. I don't know, I felt as though maybe they could have done a little bit more so that you could feel the timeline better. I don't know if that makes sense. Justin, you already pointed out the music, which is a shame, isn't it? Because usually with westerns, there's like the classical western type of music, and I didn't realise that was a critique during the movie, but with you pointing it out, I did realise, yeah, there wasn't like a moment in the movie where I felt as though the music really like added to it. So, yeah. But anyway, that's my initial thoughts. Again, if Bo wants, I can do like a more polished up version of this is what I think. But if Justin can address those things, then that'll determine whether or not I'd say it's perfect or it's not perfect. Okay, gents, I am going to give a very brief. I'm going to give a very brief opinion of El Dorado, and I am going to say it is a perfect movie. Now, as Justin has said, just because it's classified as a perfect movie doesn't mean that it's flawless. And El Dorado definitely isn't flawless, but I think that it was a joy to watch from beginning to end. I liked the acting. I liked the I had mentioned this before. I liked all the it seems as though every sentence that was spoken was like a saying, has been turned into a saying. And yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I think that the genre of Western movies till now has been heavily influenced by some of the actors and in that movie and the movie itself. And then, as I said before, when I speak to people who remember when the movie came out, they always got excited when I told them that I'd watched it. And I think it's because it's an influential movie. And we have a little bit, I don't know what the actual proper terminology for it is, but the natural bias you have when you live in a different time period, we might have some of that. So trying to put myself into the shoes of someone going to the theatre to watch it for the first time when it came out, I got to say, I think that it would be perfect. Therefore, it has my perfect vote. Thank you very much, Justin.
Sorry guys, been a little MIA. Yeah, I also really enjoyed the movie. To be honest with you, I was a little skeptical at first. I was pleasantly surprised, and I really enjoyed it. Especially given the year that it was made. I really enjoyed it. And I personally am not a huge Western fan. I think there's some of them that are out there that are just that are really awesome, and this one just made that list. So I also think it's a perfect movie. Now, Alan, tell us your movie. We need to know.
As the single naysayer of the group, can I just give my 2 cents before Chase commits to his vote? Or am I too late? I don't want to look like Mr. Debbie Downer over here. I don't want to look like the one guy that didn't like the movie enough to give it the vote for perfection. But let me tell you why. This is the same problem I had with First Night. And this might just be a testament to the differences between Justin's taste and my taste in movies. Because Justin, twice now, has picked an excellent movie that is super enjoyable to watch. But this isn't a good movie quest. This isn't an exceptional movie quest. This is a perfect movie quest. And part of perfection is it's gotta like wow you. It's gotta wow. You can't just be like oh, that's a good movie. Which is the literal tone of every single person that's mentioned their vote for yes was, it wasn't flawless, but being flawless doesn't mean it's not perfect because of like technical issues. So yeah, I'm gonna give it perfect. That's been everybody's tone. There has like contrast that. I've been editing the 1917 video. Contrast that with any of the other movies that have been voted for perfection, and it's like an enthusiastic yes. 1917, we were all like, oh, this blew me out. Like this blew me away. This blew my expectations out of the water. This was amazing. And the way we were able to dissect it, and you could literally like hear the excitement like seething off of the words as people was talking about the movie. Talk about El Dorado, and it's all like, yeah, it was good. I tried to put myself in that 1960s mindset. Yeah, it was good. I don't have any complaints, yeah. So I guess it's perfect. Is that perfect? Is that perfection for us now? Is us just being like, oh, yeah, well, shoulder shrug, yeah, really liked it. Can't really find anything too wrong with it. So yeah, this is perfect. This is perfection we're talking about. This is like the highest standard. This is like the Mount Rushmore of movies. Like, this is etched in stone. This is forever. This is permanent. We were really going to put that movie El Dorado in the same station as The Last Samurai? As 1917? Are you kidding me? It's not even in the same ballpark. Not even like in terms of the perfection. Like, El Dorado was an 8 out of 10. It's a great movie, but why are we tainting the standard of perfection? Just because we can shrug our shoulders and say we enjoyed a movie? That's not perfection. That's not what perfect movie is. So, how about this? Chase, I need you to reevaluate and think, did it hit me here, and here? Here, it was like, I was entertained. Here, it was like, the acting's kind of like Adam West, 1960s Batman. Like, it kind of had that feel, Whereas, like, just 6 years later, you got movies like The Godfather that, like, did away with all campiness, all weirdness from the 1960s, and all of a sudden, like, a movie that, like, whose actors took itself seriously and made it, like, real, Like, so we to give it grace, because it's in the 1960s, spare me. 6 years later was The Godfather, and that's it. That movie is eons better in terms of quality, in terms of acting, in terms of cinematography, in terms of legacy. Like, you can't put it in the same ballpark. El Dorado's an excellent movie. Godfather's a perfect movie. Rocky, just a few years later, 1976. Perfect movie. Contrast that with El Dorado, where they're like doping around and making jokes, and there's a dummy beneath the horse, and he's doing the Chinese face, and like it's campy. Like how did El Dorado like achieve the status of perfection if it's campy? There's serious moments, and I told Justin that I appreciated that. I appreciated that he got shot. I appreciated that the kid died. That happened early in the movie. And when he gets shot up on the hill, and John Wayne goes up to see him, I remember I was like scooching forward on my couch. I'm like, okay, so this is a movie that's rated PG, but it's PG in the 1960s. So is this going to be like a naughty PG movie, or is it going to be like a campy Adam West Batman PG movie? And when the kid died, I was like, oh my gosh, that's great. This movie takes itself serious. And there was blood, and I appreciated that. I was like, okay, so this is like a serious PG movie. But then there were just like these moments where like the sheriff acting drunk, he's like overacting. It's like it's the problem with the 1950s in particular, and it bled into the 60s, is that these actors were stage actors. Like TV and movies hadn't quite found its stride yet. And so John Wayne walks into a room in the scene on the movie, and he's like, is that the sheriff I see there? How about you hand me a gun, good sir? And it's just like, who are you talking to? And why are you shouting? This isn't a stage production. You're not in a play. You're in a freaking movie. Act like it, John Wayne. Act like it. Now, those are my qualms. Obviously, I said it's an 8 out of 10, so I like the movie. Are we losing sight of what this mission is? It's not, hey, identify, like, good movies that you can shrug your shoulders and give it grace and say that it's perfect. No! These are, like, the highest standard of achievement. Like, if we're going with, like, shoulder shrugging, feel good, like, oh, I guess I liked it, so I guess it's perfect, then why isn't Peanut Butter Falcon on the list? Or First Night, for that matter. Listen, I just implore all of you in this group to take a step back, to take a deep breath, and to reassess what it actually means to be a perfect movie. What is your favorite movie? Chase, V for Vendetta. Would you stack up El Dorado with V for Vendetta? Is it even close? V for Vendetta is a 10 out of 10, El Dorado is an 8 out of 10. To me, that's not close. To me, even a 9 out of 10 movie is like teetering on perfection. And I would even hesitate to say, as a matter of fact, the next movie I'm going to choose, I'm teetering. And so it's like, we have to have like perfection be like the gold standard of like, wow. Like when we talk about the movie, it's got to be like, wow. And the most wow that I got from El Dorado was when Justin said that he grew up watching it, and so there's like this nostalgic factor. So I tried to like factor that in, but I even told Justin this. I was like, when I talk to people about Masters of the Universe, that's like always my go-to example of like me knowing that my own brain has deceived my own taste because I grew up watching that movie, and so I can justify why I liked it. But I admit that I'm just like, oh, that's just my nostalgia talking. I wouldn't actually seriously try to convince somebody that that movie's good. I know that it's objectively bad. I just like it because I grew up watching it, so there's that nostalgia factor that's like so real for everybody in their own conceptual cell, you know? But when you try to impose that nostalgia on other people, it just falls flat. You can't implant nostalgia in somebody without them growing up having that like seed planted naturally, you know? So there you go. Now that I've given my rant as to why El Dorado is an excellent movie but not a perfect movie, would any of you like to adjust your votes? Speak now.
Okay, Bo, I appreciate you doing that. And if I'm being completely honest, there was a part of me that even before Justin gave his recommendation, there was a part of me that was like, Justin gave me such a hard time for not saying that First Night was perfect, that I really don't want to let him down. I really don't want to let him down this time. There was a little bit of that even before I knew El Dorado. And when you started going off and started talking about the things that you weren't happy about, or what took it down from the level of perfection, I was thinking, nah, I still think it is. But then he came out with the big shot, which is The Godfather, which is my favourite movie of all time. 6 years later. That's a great point. Are we giving it too much grace just because it came out in 66? Because 6 years later, my favourite movie of all time came out. Think about the movies, and as you say with SWAT, think about the movies that came out 6 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Do I look at those and think, you got to give it grace? Because, no, not really. I don't. I love Minority Report. And when I watch Minority Report, I think that stacks up. Like, that holds its own. I mean, sure, maybe, like, there's better quality equipment now, but the acting, the storyline, all of those things with Minority. So it's a great point, and maybe this is what we get for missing out on the actual conversation, because in the actual, like, for example, if only a couple of us showed up for my movie, which was Snatch, then the rest of you would have watched it and came back and says, no, Callum, it's not a perfect movie, because it was in the discussion that we were able to talk it over and then kind of make our minds up in that moment. So we've missed out on that. Which is our own fault, So I appreciate your fight back. Justin, anything else you would like to say? Because to me, Bo's point is very well made. It's a good point and it's well made. The Godfather is my favourite, and I find it difficult to put it in the same category as The Godfather.
So Justin hit my the same high points that I did during the actual debate, but when we were casting votes, when we were casting votes, and Bo kind of said his piece as to why he doesn't believe that it's a perfect movie. I countered that with, geez, let me think. Hope I can recapture this. I feel like I said it way better. I was very succinct, and I think I was a little bit more articulate when I in the moment than I'm trying to remember it now. But anyway, the gist was kind of countering what Bo had said, in the sense that you can't. A perfect movie has to be able to stand on its own, and it's unfair to compare it to. It's unfair to compare it to other movies that we also consider perfect. You have to put it into the context of the time frame that it is, and also the context of, right, that is part of our criteria, is putting it in the context of the genre of the film. And so I think, so from my perspective, I think I approached it from, is there a perfect Western? Because I don't particularly like Westerns. And I had to distinguish between what is a Western and what is like a period piece, because we have like 3:10 to Yuma and what was the other one that we used? Tombstone. I think kind of could be considered Westerns, but I don't view them as Westerns. I view them as period pieces. And so if from a period piece, I love those two movies. Those two movies are really good, and probably at least Tombstone I would consider like a perfect movie. But I don't necessarily consider it a Western. It just happens to be a period piece that takes place in the Western, in the Old West. But it is not a stylistic Western film. And so if there is a perfect Western film, I think this is it, because of the pacing, because of the writing. It is very dialogue driven, which I love, because it hit that implied intelligence piece a little bit, right? Like, it didn't have to spoon feed us a whole lot of stuff. And my good example on that was the time jump. I felt it was like, in the moment, I was like, this is kind of like choppy and kind of blocky, but then as they talk about it, like, it's the dialogue that drives that connects the jump. And I was like, oh, that's actually really clever. Like, they actually put a lot of thought into how to make it dialogue driven, instead of just like a caption at the bottom of the screen, 5 years later, or whatever it was, right? No, so that is implied intelligence, that the writers and the directors expect you to be paying attention to the movie. And that's what makes it like that. One of the things that Bo said in the moment was, there was nothing that wowed me, that made me like sit back and go like, oh dang, at the end of the day. But for me, that was it. At the end of the day, after I was done watching the movie, as I was thinking about it, I was like, man, that really was like very well dialogue driven. And it did make me like pause and think on the same motifs and themes that Justin had already been talking about. So I was I did put it in a perfect movie category, not because I'm going to compare it to The Last Samurai or V for Vendetta or The Godfather. I'm comparing it to the context and genre that it is. And I asked myself, is there going to be a perfect Western? Probably. There's probably a perfect Western movie, and I think that this is it, because I don't particularly enjoy the thematic stylistics of Westerns. But this movie, I think, was as perfect as it could possibly be for its day. And one of the things that I lamented during the discussion was, it seems unfair for this particular movie that it has not gone through like a digital upgrade, like a lot of movies have. Like, how many times has Star Wars, the 1977 Star Wars, been redone just to bring it up to more modern day cinematic stylistics? And this movie hadn't done that. Nobody's done that. Nobody's given it like a revamp. And for example, like Justin had pointed out that the nighttime scenes was very visionary. It was something that hadn't been done before. And so for them to film at night instead of like a blue filter over the lens to make it look like it's at night, but yet there's still like shadows on the ground and all kinds of like silly things that make it look really bad. They decided they were actually going to shoot at night. Now, if they did a digital upgrade to that movie today, they could clean a lot of that up. And nobody has yet. Nobody's done that. So I think a digital touch-up would be beneficial for this movie and make it look better, and that would, you know, make for a better viewing experience. But the visuals of this movie aren't what sold it. It was the dialogue, in my opinion. Like the writing, the interaction between the characters, the character development and growth, and their downfalls and redemption. Like all of that is what made this movie really good. And then putting it in a Western format, which again, like Bo pointed out and counts it as a negative, I counted it as a positive, that this movie was done during that transition between stage performance and cinematic performances. So a lot of these actors were stage performers and performing as if they were on the stage instead of in cinema, right? This is a time in Hollywood where they're trying to make that transition, and you had a lot of stage performers switching over to cinema, and the acting, you know, hadn't quite developed itself into like cinematic performances instead of stage performances. So Bo knocked that. I thought that it was actually, I thought it added to the impressiveness of the film, in the sense that it was kind of setting the stage for that kind of transition into like greater Hollywood. So it was visionary in that sense. Okay, so I think those are all the additional high points that that I would add. I think Justin captured the rest of it, but all right, those were the reasons that I voted that it was a perfect movie.
Hey boys, hey, so I wanted to give my response before I catch up on the movie men's chat about El Dorado. Let me see. Sorry. And so here's I don't know where everybody stands. I watched a little bit of Justin's like explanation on why he thinks it's a perfect movie. And here's my 2 cents is, it didn't check many of those boxes for me of what makes a perfect movie. I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was like good, but like Westerns are not my thing. They're just not my cup of tea. And so I like went into this really trying to be objective because of that. Wanted to give it a fair shake. And it was just everything that I expected from a Western in the 60s. And so I just was like, like it was, I don't know, like it was a good movie. Like it was a fine movie. It just kind of, I don't know, it kind of felt like a chore to get through it. And like the overacting and then the underacting. I mean, in the first 10 minutes when he brings the kid to, and I mean, I'm sure this is what your mindset had to be like in the, you know, in the Wild West. But like when he brought his son back and he's like, I reckon he's dead. And he's like, you'd reckon you'd be reckoned right. And then like just the campiness got me. It was just like, oh, like we're just going to do all of the like Western cliche things. Got it. Okay. I mean, it's John Wayne. So like, he was the founder of this. This isn't campy. This is original to him, you know, from him rather. But then the dad's like, well, take him inside. And then John Wayne just rides off. And I'm like, cool. That dad really, really got protective over his son. But again, maybe that's, whatever. Like that's not a thing. I'm just saying, like, within the first 10 minutes, it lived up to all of my expectations of of a Western to me. And so, again, I watched it, I enjoyed it, but like I probably will never watch it again. If it was on TV, it felt like I was at my grandpa's house, and like he had train living the Tokyo life, boys. But like my grandpa, he had Parkinson's, and like towards the end when he couldn't move, like there was just Westerns on all the time, and like we would try as children to watch them, and it was just so bad. So maybe like I have a little bias because of that. So again, I was trying to watch it objectively. I liked the movie. I just don't think it came even close to being a perfect movie, in my opinion. It's a good movie, but just like like I'm trying to think of all of the things that you could check a box on. Great story, kind of, I guess, for the 60s. I guess. Good acting? No, not really. Maybe in the 60s. Like it does not stand the test of time at all, in my opinion. Like I IMDb'd it, and like, I mean, I know it's like John Wayne, and like it like I don't know. I mean, it was like revolutionary, I guess, to the Western world. It sounded like, and but yeah, probably won't ever watch it again. Not, in my opinion. I'm just going down the line. Not rewatchable. Does not have the girlfriend factor. I showed it to just the poster to my wife. I was like, hey, we should watch this movie. Justin said, well, I didn't say Justin, actually. I said, we're voting on this to be a perfect movie. And then afterwards, she said who recommended it, and I said, Justin. And she looked at me like, what? Why would he, like, she thinks all you watch is Star Wars. And so, and like, this was so out of left field for her. She was so shocked that you would recommend a Western. Anyways, I showed her the poster, and she immediately was like, no, my dad would love that movie. And her dad is 75. And so, like, it validated me, because I was like, oh, see, that's how I feel. I'm like, oh, this is just like, it's going to live up to everything that you think a Western's going to be. And it did. In a better way, I guess. I've already said my piece on, I think it's a good movie. It's just not my cup of tea. Not a remote dropper. Not rewatchable. And, is not, like, if it was in our perfect movie category, I just don't feel good about having it in there and like seeing it and and having somebody be like, oh, it's El Dorado. And you'd be like, you haven't seen El Dorado? Bro, man, you gotta watch El Dorado. It is a perfect movie. That's a tall ask. That's a tall ask. And to be fair, my recommendation is a tall ask in the same vein, where it's like, man, it's a heavy movie, and it's like, sorry, kids are screaming. Hey, you guys okay? Okay. Hold on one second. How much you guys are going to let, could you hear me over that? Sorry. That's the big one for me, is I'm like, if we put this on the list, I can't defend it to just some random person, like, and then sit there and watch it with them. And then, like I was saying, to be fair, mine is a tall order as well. And so I also went into, like, I also wanted to look at it as like genre based. And that's a slippery slope, you know, because now we have, like, I mean, Tombstone is so anyways, my vote's a no. Sorry, Justin. But I don't know if I can be convinced, but I'm open to be convinced. I'm going to go rewatch this or watch everybody else's stuff, and then I'll hop back on. Wait, trying to think of what other boxes it checked or didn't check. I don't know. Actually, that's my 2 cents. I'll go and watch, and then if I have any other thoughts that weren't already said, then I'll get back on.
Drew, thanks for reminding me about your movie, Talk to Me, which was a tall order as well. And I voted yes on that one. Do you know why? Because it had the wow factor. Because it blew me away. It like blew my socks off. I didn't like it. I don't think anybody liked it. You can't say that you enjoyed it because it made everybody feel icky. So it's not even a matter of like enjoying it or liking the movie. For me, like the more we go through with this exercise, the more I'm honing in. And again, this is for me, my personal barometer for perfection is the wow factor above everything else, above like remote drop, above girlfriend factor, above like even plot or good writing or good cinematography. Wow me. Can you wow me? Talk to Me was like so uncomfortable and icky and nobody liked it, and I covered my eyes a couple times and I had to like take myself out of the movie just for my own sanity a couple of times. But at the end of the day, I mean, those twists at the end were like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming. Or, oh my gosh, what a way to end that movie, like in a loop, like it like loops, you know, or it like compels me to rewatch it. Like The Sixth Sense, you know, the ending of The Sixth Sense famously did that. And, but the fact remains that I'm like, okay, so it hit all the points of like a horror movie and it did its job. And in addition to that, it wowed me. The wow factor was there. I had to vote yes on its perfection, even though I didn't like it. And again, that's just another differentiator in my judgment, in my judging process is like, I mean, like Chase said, the movie, it's not like it was, what did Chase say? I mean, we all say at one point or another, perfection doesn't mean flawless per se, but also flawless doesn't mean perfection. Like even if a movie doesn't have any mistakes, that doesn't mean that it's automatically perfect. There has to be a wow factor. Like there's tons of, you know, documentaries that are flawless, but I wouldn't consider them perfect movies because it's just like information. Like some movies just give you information and are slightly entertaining as a result. Like that's what a documentary is. That's kind of how I felt about El Dorado. It was just like I was intaking information, and the information was this was a popular Western in the 60s. John Wayne was the biggest movie star of his time, and this is what they considered good back then. Like that was just information, just data that was pouring into me as I'm watching El Dorado. And again, taking into consideration that it's 1960s, I can let the dummy in front of the horses slide. I can let the campy pretending to be a Chinese person to then just punch the guard in the face, like to distract the guard long enough to punch him in the face. It's campy. It's 1960s Adam West Batman campy. And again, contextually, oh, well, that's how all movies were. So that's not necessarily a flaw. So even if you were to argue that El Dorado is flawless, that doesn't mean that it's perfect. Just like sometimes a perfect movie doesn't mean that it's flawed. Like, Empire Strikes Back might be a perfect movie. We might all agree to that just because it's an incredible movie. But, you can see like movie mistakes in it. And so that doesn't deplete from its perfections. You see what I mean? So it goes both ways. So anyway, I just Drew just reminded me about Talk to Me, and I wanted to say my piece on that too, because I actually enjoyed El Dorado more than Talk to Me. If we're talking about just sheer like enjoying a flick, kicking back, putting some popcorn in my mouth and enjoying what's in front of me, yeah, El Dorado was more enjoyable. But Talk to Me was more perfect because of the wow factor. It was horror, it was horrifying, it was uncomfortable, it was squeamish. I didn't enjoy it, but boy did it wow me. And that to me is the number one factor in determining a movie's perfection. Did it wow me? The wow factor. But again, it's hard to articulate, it's hard to plan for, it's hard to orchestrate, it's hard to predict. It's kind of a gut thing. It's a hear thing, you know? So anyway, appreciate you bringing that up, Drew, because I wanted to say my piece on your movie as well. It's just a weird experience for all of us.
Morning, evening, boys. After watching all of the polos, I don't know, I feel like I was really hesitant in mine because I felt like from the other little ones that I listened to, it sounded like I was going to be the oddball. And then I finished all of it. It sounds like Bo got to rally the troops a little bit, and seems like we were on similar planes. Yeah, the biggest takeaway for me from this movie is that I liked it. Like I said, best Western, old Western I've ever seen. Like, I've tried to sit through a few of them, and I just can't. Again, it's just not my cup of tea. But this one, for the sake of the quest, I got through it, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. So we don't need to beat a dead horse. But, oh shoot, I had something to say. Yeah, I think I'm victim of this, just like the rest of us, but maybe more than, maybe I put myself in this box of needing it to check the boxes in order for us to justify it to be a perfect movie, rather than watching it, appreciating it, and then using the check boxes as mere guidelines. And so I think I just fell into the checklist box where I was like, it doesn't check this box, and it doesn't check this box, and it doesn't. That doesn't mean it wasn't a good movie. Doesn't mean that, like, I'm not gonna recommend it. If somebody wants to watch a Western, even if somebody wants to watch a Western, I'll be like, watch Tombstone. But I do appreciate, like, the art of the time, and this one I feel like got gypped from having a full-blown discussion with everybody on the podcast. So I think I personally feel like I need to apologize to Justin, because what a swing, you know. He swung for the fences, and like, this is so out there from what we're also used to and what we've already deemed perfect movies. And so I can really appreciate it, and I appreciate the bravery. It just didn't stick with me. I feel like this movie deserved a better turnout for the podcast, for live debate, and it just didn't happen. I mean, we're getting some here, but that's kind of how I feel about it. One of the best Westerns I've ever seen, all things considered. I'm sorry, brother. But I think my opinion stands. I think even with, like, the what was Justin saying, like, the way that this movie revolutionized cinema, that's a cool fact. The way he, like, emphasized it, but I don't feel like that puts it up any higher on my perfect movie list. So I don't have anything else to add, except for I wish that we all could have done this conversation live. I feel like it deserved it, and kudos to Justin for giving us something that is, you know, very different from what we all deem. You really threw a curveball, is what it was, and so I appreciate it, and so much fun. I love this stuff. And that's it.
Yeah, Justin, your movie sucks. All joking aside, I also want to, well, one, Bo, I appreciate you coming in and saying that, because I do feel that there was a part of me that was kind of like, that I was like, oh yeah, it was a good movie, and it was because I was pleasantly surprised. And to piggyback off of what Drew said, is I'm also not a Western fan. I'm just not, and especially after hearing those points of like, well, if somebody was like, yeah, I want to watch a Western movie, that wouldn't be the first or the third or fourth that I would recommend. So, yeah, maybe I was a little hesitant also in saying that it was a perfect movie. I think more so I was just pleasantly surprised, and I felt like it was good, but was it perfect? And I think maybe I lost sight of that. And as well, to piggyback off of what Drew said, Justin, yeah, you've been throwing some great movies out there, some that have sparked great conversation, and it is certainly unfair that this wasn't something that could have been just discussed on the podcast. And I also would like to apologize because I wasn't on there, obviously. So, yeah, and that's just unfortunate because this could have been a great one with great conversation and great back and forth. I mean, we're getting that just with these polos. So it would have been even better to hear some clapbacks in real time. So sorry about that, Justin. But yeah, I did really enjoy the movie. But, after hearing, hearing and thinking about it a little bit more, I don't know, man. I think I retract my statement.
And then Alan, let's wrap this up with your next nomination.
All right. Have any of you guys seen The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent?
No.
Do you even know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
I literally watched that just 2 weeks ago.
Did
It's
you?
So good. Yeah.
All right. That's my nomination. I
Yes.
kind of was, I didn't know if anybody else had seen it. I was kind of like, the way that it came to my lap, to my screen was unusual. And then I remember watching it. I was like, I think this is going to be my nomination. I think I'm going to nominate this movie. So anyway, there it is. No spoilers, no nothing. I'm not even going to tell you who's in it. I mean, for anybody, I guess if you guys already know, but there you go. We'll put it in the Marco chat and we'll see if anybody else has seen it or knows what it is. But that's my nomination.
Hey, even though I just watched it 2 weeks ago, I will gladly watch it again in preparation for this discussion. Great choice, Al. Love this one. And I think unlike your last one, I don't think this one's a layup. I think this is going to have some riveting discussion. So it'll be fun.
Agreed. That's what I was going for this time too. So let's
respect, man. Respect for taking a risk. And by the way, Justin, I'm going to be taking a big risk on my next one. So don't think that we're just picking on you. I like these like teetering on perfection, getting these good discussions going. So, excellent choice, Al. And Justin, thanks for all your defense of El Dorado. This is a fun discussion, and I'm excited to hear what the other guys have to say. But I'm even more excited about next meeting's discussion. So, with that, let's wrap up. Have a good night, gents. Peace out.
Fill your hand, you son of a bitch.